Yes. Let me have a quick revision first of all, because it's almost like 3 days have been passed to our class. As we started with the OWD, organization-wide defaults. Now, OWD, although have 9 different options, the most important to discuss over here is, or maybe the most important to differentiate over here is between public and private. Whenever you set OWD as public for any object, and for most of the object, it's by default as public only. The options could be different, like read only, read, write, transfer. But the authority is public. The access, the level of access is public. And whenever it is public, if a user would create a record inside that object, that record is going to be accessible for all of the users. And you simply don't require to remember this. Why? Because in India, there are more, whenever we go, certainly we found something called as a public place. That's very common. And that's very common in our country, that we are having so many of the things which are available for every one of us. Public places are there. Loos are there, right? So there are so many places. When it is public, it's actually accessible to everyone. What we should remember is what happens when you set OWD as private. That is more important, which I feel. So whenever you convert or whenever you set the OWD as private for any object, so in that case, what is going to be happen would be like, if a record is being created inside that object where the OWD is private, this is going to be visible to the owner and to his manager, and the manager to the manager in the hierarchy. And it's not going to be visible to anybody else. So that's what happens when the OWD is private. See, we have an at length discussion. Still I feel that whenever I should start something, I go one step back and just prepare the background and then start with the things, right? So when you set OWD as private, so the record is going to be visible to the record's owner, to his manager, and if anybody is above the manager to manager is also going to access the record. And nobody else apart from all these guys would going to have an access. But if you wanted to share the record, I wanted the record should be get shared to a few more people, then how? In that case, we learn something called as a sharing mechanism. So the sharing mechanism only works when the record's OWD is private. If it is public, there is no meaning to talk about sharing. Why? Because when it is public, it's already being shared to everyone, right? So if we are talking about the record sharing, the OWD must always be private. That is what I have told you. If the question would be asked you, if there's a question that would be asked you in the interview is, what is a record sharing? How many different forms of record sharing? Actually, you should start saying your answer from OWD. You should take a step back and you should start giving the answer that when the OWD is private, and then like this, right? So this is also something I have told you. I hope you are going to follow the same instructions what has been given to you. So now we have seen, like, there are 3 different forms of record sharing. I have shown you one diagram for this. I probably have not shared that into your drive. If you want, you can take the screenshots. No problem at all. Sometimes I usually forgot to share the things, especially with the diagrams and all. Where it is. It's always difficult to find a diagram. Yeah. I'm going to create a separate folder for all this. See, there are 3 different forms of sharing: manual sharing, automatic, and apex sharing. Manual sharing, we are going to start it by today. So manual sharing is something which is done by the sharing button. For automatic sharing, you are going to learn something called a sharing rule. Apex sharing, I will although going to teach you, like, when we have automatic and manual, why should we go for the apex sharing? I'm going to teach you. But in practical, we're not going to implement this program. If you want, you can find this program. I think you can find it on the chat GPT. I'm not sure, but maybe you can find it onto the chat GPT. Let me try to check it out for you guys. Obviously, I'm a human being here. Let me try to find out whether can you find a program for similar on the chat GPT for this. Maybe if that would work, you can find a code at least over there. All right, write an Apex program to share the account record. Let's see what this would give you. Very nice, very nice. Absolutely stunning. See, that is what is a benefit of using ChatGPT. It can give you almost 50% of the code. So yeah, 50% of the effort it's going to solve. Obviously, we're going to require a small more modifications in the program, and it could become a program what you wanted. See, you can call this method in the another Apex and all, or it will just try to simplify the code as well. This is what a wonderful feature of this ChatGPT, right? So you can install this as an extension, and then you can add it to Chrome. So this would be a program. All right, we're going to talk it somewhere later down the time. But right now, we're going to have a discussion about only manual and automatic sharings. So even if you're performing a manual share or automatic share, right, the kind of level of access that could be given is there are only two levels, read only and read write. You're going to understand. I can share it to single user and to the multiple user, right? So you keep this diagram with you. You can take the screenshot, or I'm going to share it to your drive. Let me now start with the manual sharing, how to perform the manual sharing and all. All right. So I'm going to going with all of those use cases, whatever has been given. Let me try with my own, and you can solve it. You can solve it by yours as well. Let me try to. There's a scheduled maintenance on 11th of February. 11th of February, 9 a.m. PST. Why it is giving it's in the PST? That Pacific time. Is there any release coming up? Maybe a new release is coming up on this date. Let's check it out. It's really important to know. If I would go with, for example, AP0. Let me see what is going to happen on February of 11th of February. Yeah, it's Spring 23 major release. See, 11th of the Feb, we are going to get upgraded version of Salesforce. Everyone, a big announcement. So 10:30 p.m. IST, Indian Standard Time. It would be like, you are going to get the major release. The Spring 23 is coming up on February 11. Very good. All right. So, see. Now, let me first of all prepare a background for this. You see that one thing, that this development user creates a record. Let me make a login to recreate the issue once again. The development user has created these two records, record number 1 and record number 2. Now, this record is not visible to anybody else apart from the manager. Who's the manager of this? The admin, the CEO is the manager, right? So if I go with the account and I'll click on the all accounts, and here itself, I mean, I just forgot to mention that from in the recently viewed account, you can see we are having that the development user record number 1 and record number 2. This is being accessible to the admin, the manager of the development user. But if you try to see this with some other users, for example, if I would go to a user called manager, right? I'm just making a login once again to the manager's account. This is actually one of the subordinate, no, one of the siblings to this user. If I'll go with all accounts, you can see he doesn't seems to have the access of anybody else account. He even himself has not created any account. So that's the reason this list is completely blank. The first, he is not having access to anybody else account. Moreover, he has not created any account for himself, right? All right. Now, I would make first of all, let me make a logout from here. Now, I wanted that the development user would create a record that should visible to him, to his manager, which already is happening, Development user creates a record, is visible to him. This record is also visible to the admin user, this user, SFDC training batch user, which is already in place. Now, additional to this, I wanted that this record should also be get visible to the manager user due to certain business requirements, right? This user creates a record, should also be get visible to the manager user. How we are going to make it? So this I would be performing right now with the manual sharing. With the manual sharing, by using a sharing button, I would be sharing a record. To the manager user. All right. So how to do this? Let me try to show you. So once again, I'll go to the development user. There are 2 records in the account, 1 and 2. I'll make 1, not 2, just one of them. This is record. This is a record number 1. And I would be sharing this record. See, there is a button called share. See, sharing, right? So when you press this button, see, when you share something with the sharing button, it is called as manual sharing. That's why I listed manual sharing is being performed by a sharing button. There's a button for this. You'll have to manually click that, right? That's why it's called as manual sharing. So I would be sharing this record only. Understand. There's a vast difference between manual and automatic sharing. And I'm going to, first of all, let's feel that pain. Let's feel that. And then we would going to, after this automatic sharing is completed, we're going to have a comparative study between manual and manual and automatic sharing. And there would be few points only, but that would be very concrete discussion. तो अभी ध्यान दीजिए इस चीज के ऊपर कि how exactly I would be sharing this record. So I'm pressing the sharing button. There's only one record I'm sharing, record number 1. Whatever I will do, I'll do that. Whatever I'm doing to this record. And this would going to have an impact onto this only. It's not like कि आप record 1 पे कुछ कर रहे हो तो record 2 पे अपने आप आ जाएगा. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. This sharing, what you are doing right now, manual sharing, is always done on record level. Is always done on record level. The manual sharing is always done on record level. I hope you are not just listening, you are also taking your notes, you are writing all this. Whenever you are sitting in class, you are sitting like you have a pen and your notebook where you used to take the notes and everything. I hope this is something what you are following. I cannot see you. That is the drawback of a virtual class, but we have to survive in this virtual world because this is what you are going to work like this only, right? So it's your responsibility. It's your own personal responsibility how you sit in a class. Manual sharing is always done on record level. So I go to a record called record number 1. I'll repeat the process. I first of all open the record. There were 2 records. I select record number 1. There were 2 records. I select record number 1. Whatever I'm sharing, this is going to be applied for record number 1 only. If I wanted the record number 2 should also be get shared, I have to open that record and perform this once again. It is not going to be happen like I share record number 1 and record number 2 will automatically share. No, there's a different way to do that. First of all, manual sharing is always done on record level. I'm pressing the sharing button on record number 1. Now it will show to me to which user this is right now available. This record number 1 is available. It's already being shared to development user. Why? With full access. Why full access? Because he's the owner. Because he's the owner of this record. And by default, it's available with the admin. There's no need to mention the name. It's always, every record is always available to the system admin user. That is what is a privilege is being granted to him. And we don't have to mention. So there's no name called a system administrator over here, but this is a default functionality of Salesforce that whatever a user would create is automatically get shared, is available to the system administrator. Right now, if you wanted this record apart from user development should get available to anybody else, there's a button called as add. There's a button called as add. Make a click onto this. There's a button called as add. Now it would show you the users into this, but you first of all would require to select the categories from where you wanted to list them out. From public groups, what is a public group? We're going to study them. Don't worry. From roles, these are the roles. You wanted this record to be get shared to some role. From roles and internals and external subordinates, something, or users. I would be selecting user. When I select the users, I get the list of all users, right? So I would be sharing this record to somebody called as manager user. So I select manager, add. Once you add, it will come to the right side in the grid of right side, right? Now, what kind of access you wanted to give? I told you there are only 2 levels of access you can give. When you are sharing a record, it could be read only, read write. It cannot be read, write, transfer. All right, it cannot be read, write, transfer it. In case if it is a case and lead object, we're going to talk about that. But right now, there's only 2 levels of access I could give: read only and read write. Read only and read write. So account access, read only, read write. Don't see about opportunity and case. We're going to talk it somewhere else. But right now, for the account, what you're saying, what you're sharing right now, you can give read only and read write. For example, I would be giving a let's say read only access. I'm sharing this record to the manager user, and to this user, I'm giving him a read only access. And let me now save this. Now see, the manager user also is being added to this table. He is also having the access to this record with read only. And why he is having the access? How come this is possible? Because of the manual sharing. Because of the manual sharing, this user get this access. Let's now check it out. So I'm making a logout from this user's account. I'm going to the manager users, and now if I make a login, I'll go with the account, and let's see although it's being listed out. Let me go with the all accounts. See, now he could also access development users record number 1, right? With read-only access. That means even though if you try to edit somewhere, so if you try to edit, see, insufficient privileges, he is not able to edit. If you try to perform what you call inline editing, this symbol is for the inline. For example, he would try to make it customer direct. And now if you try to save it, you do not have level of access necessary to perform the operation you requested. All right. So this means he cannot do any sort of editing, whether it's an inline editing or it's being trying something to edit from the edit layout. He can only see the record. He cannot make changes anywhere down in the records, right? He cannot make the changes anywhere else. That is what it does means, first of all, by the manual sharing, and second, read-only access. Let me try this with another user. So I'll just make a logout from here. And once again, I'll make a login to the development user. Record number 1 already has been shared to somebody. I'll try this with record number 2. Now, because this record number 2, let me share this once again manually. And I'm adding this time, for example, I'm taking the list of users. I'm adding the customer user, right? And to this user, I'm giving both access, read as well as write. Read as well as write. And let me now save this, right? So user development is having read write access. How come? Customer user is having read write access. How come? Because of the manual sharing. Now let me log out from this user account. I would be going to the customer users login. I'm going with the accounts, going with the all accounts. Now you can see the customer user record number 1 is his local account. This record also has been shared to him. Development users record number 2. Here, if he wanted, he can perform editing because we have given him read write access. So you can see he can change this record. What he cannot do, he cannot delete. In both of the cases, see, whenever this is what is going to be a difference between There's a question in interview. What is the difference between record sharing and transferring ownership of a record? So what is the transfer of ownership would be a topic in an upcoming topic. When I would be completing that, I am going to raise this question. Don't worry. But right now, let me show you something. So for example, this record was being shared. It's originally this record belongs to development user. This record has been shared to a user called as customer user with read-write access. So he can read, he can even perform the writing, he can change the data. What about delete operation? So if you try to delete this record, insufficient privilege. So whenever you share a record, level of access को भूल जाओ यहाँ पे, उसकी तो मैं बात ही नहीं कर रहा हूँ. मैं simple बात कह रहा हूँ कि whenever I share a record, whenever you share a record, whenever you share a record to a user, based on the kind of access he's having, he can either read only or he can perform reading and writing as well. But in both of the circumstances, what is one thing that is common? He cannot delete the record. He cannot delete the record. Deletion of the record can only be done by the owner of the record or by the system administrator. He cannot delete that record. This can be done with the owner or system administrator. So if system admin would like to delete this record, for example, development user record number 2, if he wanted to delete, although he's not the owner, he's not the owner of this record. You can see the owner is user development. But if this user would attempt this, he can delete, right? He can delete this record. See, that is what this happens. So there are only two people who can delete, owner and system administrator. Apart from these two persons, nobody else can. Even though if you have shared the record to somebody, he can read, write based on what kind of access you have given at the time of sharing. But in both of the cases, this is common that he cannot delete the record. He cannot delete the record. That is what it is common between record sharing. All right. And we're going to talk this once again when you would understand how to transfer the ownership of a record. So majorly, we are going to talk what are the differences between record sharing and transferring the ownership of a record. So this was manual sharing, right? Go with this example, what I have seen, taken, and go with this one as well. Go with this one as well. Next lecture, I would be going to start with the public groups, right? I have to start with, see, today what you have seen, with the help of manual sharing, how we could share the record to a single user. Like you shared the record in first case, in the first use case, you shared the record to the manager user. In the second, you shared this to the customer user. Now you would going to understand how to share a record with the manual sharing, how to share the record to the multiple users, right? So whenever we are sharing a record to the multiple users, the first thing is like you will have to form public groups. We have to form a public groups. All right. So that is what is going to be a base, how to share the records to the multiple users. Whenever we are sharing this to multiple users, we'll have to form something called as a public group. Now, what is a public group? First of all, what is a public group? I can take it right now. What is a public group? If I would ask you, what is your WhatsApp group? It is pretty simple thing. There, I mean, you're having your friends and so many contacts, so many users, you put them into our group. Whenever, for example, if this is a group, we are also having this WhatsApp group. If I would be sharing certain messages or certain things into the group, that is going to be visible to every one of you. Why? Because that's available. You guys are a part of this group. So whenever I wanted to share a record to multiple users, the first thing is like, I'll have to club them. I'll have to group them. I'll have to group them in a group. That group is called as a public group. Salesforce. In Salesforce, if you club, if you combine, if you bring together multiple users into the same platform, now that platform is called as what? As a public group. As a public group. So if you wanted to share a record to multiple users, you would have to first of all create public groups. Add the user inside this, add the user inside public group, and then share it to them. Let's try to finish that as well. So I would be going with this use case. Create a public group called Hyderabad Sales Group. And I'm going to add customer and testing user into this group. See, we are having very limited number of users. So whatever the example I would be taking there would be, mostly it would be on the development user because he's having a Salesforce license and few more users. All right. We don't have so many users. We were having only one Salesforce license and 3 platform licenses remaining to us. So that's how I have created 4 users, right? So whatever the example I'm going to take, I'll have to manage within that 4 users only, right? So I would be creating a one public group. Let me show you how to create that. And then I'm going to add customer and testing user as a part of that group. So I would be going to the setup menu. And then I'll going with the manage users. And here I have a public group tab, right? A link to create the public group. Now, all of the groups are going to be listed out over here. We don't have right now, but I would be creating one of them. The label I'm giving as Hyderabad Sales Group. Now, to this group, I would be adding customer and testing. Customer and testing. So let me get it from the users object. Customer user, testing user. I would be adding these 2 users as a part of the script. Now, don't do anything else apart from this. Grant access using hierarchies. ठीक है, छोड़ो इसके बारे में. Custom object से बात करता हूं मैं. So I have created one group. With the name Hyderabad Sales Group. Now see, I would do one thing. Let me now go to the development users login. And now I would be creating a record. Another record I would be creating. Let me create like development user record number 3. Okay. Account type is prospect. Industry is healthcare. Rating is warm. With few of the details, let me create this record. All right, let me create this record. Now, if I would go to and see this record is not shared to anyone, right? It's not available with anybody. Now, I would add. And we have created a group called as Hyderabad Sales Group. So I'm directly sharing this to a group. Right? And I would be saving this. Now this record number 3 is available to Hyderabad Sales Group. When I'm saying that it's being shared to a group, it actually means all of the members of this group can now access this record number 3. Who are the members of this group? There are 2 users, customer and testing. So let me one by one check it out. So I would be making a logout from here. I would be going to the customer users login. And I'm going with the account, all account. And now you can see development user record number 3 is accessible to him. He can access. Why? Because he is a member of a group called Hyderabad Sales Group. Right? And because the record was shared to the group, he's a member. So he's also having the access to this, right? If you would make a logout from here, who's another user? Testing, right? If I'm not wrong, who's the another user? Who's the another user? Testing. All right. So now I would be making a login to the testing users account. Login, going to the account and going with all accounts. Now see, record number 3 is also visible to him. And these 2 users, because they were the part of a group called as Hyderabad Sales Group. That is the reason, because the record was being shared to Hyderabad Sales Group. These are having the access. And anybody who is a part of this group, Hyderabad Sales Group, whoever is a part of this group, there are 2 users, testing and customer. But whoever, if you will add the users and you shared something to this group, all of the users inside the group would going to have an access. So what we have learned so far, first thing, we learned manual sharing. How to share a record manually, and manual sharing is always applicable on record level, understand. Record by record, you'll have to share. With the manual sharing, we have seen what does it means by read-write, having a read-write access and having a read-only access. We also have seen with the manual sharing, how could we share a record to a single user and how could we share it to the multiple user. Whenever we are sharing a record to multiple user, we'll have to create something called as a public group. And you actually would share the record to the group. When you share a record to the group, it is obviously is available to all of the users that are part of this group. So that is where I could now say the manual sharing is completed. And so by tomorrow, I'm going to start with the automatic sharing. From tomorrow, I'm going to start with the automatic sharing. How to do the automatic sharing, how to write down the sharing rules and everything. And how with the automatic sharing, you could share a record to a single user to the multiple users. Oh, what I'm highlighting. How with the automatic sharing, you can share a record to a single user as well as to a multiple users. Right now, one last announcement, your class would be by tomorrow morning, your class would be from 7:30 to 8:15. I'm reducing 15 minutes. There's a reason for that actually. So your class from tomorrow would be 7:30 to 8:15. Yes. Any questions? Let me give you this command. First of all, you can now unmute yourself. Yes. Any questions, guys? कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं आप लोग? Any questions? Anybody wanted to have any discussions? All right. Then. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day.